Welcome back. We are here with the PHS Diversity Panel. The date is February 15th, 2024. I'm Louise Najuko, your moderator, and Tiani Chen is your sound room operator with Mr. Winchell. She's taking control in the sound room. The purpose of the panel is to focus on the importance of respect, empathy, and value, with having a group of students talk about what diversity means to them, with the respect of their points being heard. But the main focus would be about equity and inclusion too. As Dr. Sun referred to how we as individuals can be on the same playing field on how we can do better for our school, community, and society. We are now here with
I'm Frankie Carmen. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Jasmine Thapa. I'm a senior.
I'm Lauren Toiwa, and I'm a junior.
I'm Kai Hirose, and I'm a senior.
I'm Lyneth Calderon Lopez, and I'm a senior.
I'm Ascendo Elgar, and I'm a junior.
Okay, we're here. So the first question would be, what does diversity mean to you, and why do you think it's important to touch on these issues?
Well, I think diversity refers to like the composition of groups, so like the variation in like physical markers, so like race, gender, like sexual orientation, or it can also encompass like diversity in thought and ideology. So there's many components of it, I think.
I think it's really important to touch on these issues because right now we're seeing a lot of groups being targeted, and a place like a public school is a really important place to have inclusion and make sure that people feel safe in the community. And if we don't have that, it can be a really unsafe space for people.
I think like piggybacking off of that, I think it's extremely important so that people have the proper resources and just feel safe in school, because feeling uncomfortable or unsafe in a place like a public school can hinder your ability to learn so much. And I think that in order to get a proper education, people need to feel safe and like they're heard.
Anybody else got anything to say? No?
Sorry. I also think like more diverse spaces leads to like more consciousness of like biases that we have and like prejudices that might go unchecked if we don't have spaces where like we can have open, like empathetic conversations about them. So I think definitely being able to facilitate these groups and like settings where it might not always be like readily apparent. So like in our school, there's obviously, it's a very predominantly white school. So like encouraging diversity in classrooms and clubs can make groups of people that would typically have probably one set of values and beliefs kind of challenge that and be able to like have discussions about it as well.
How does your unique background contribute to how you view issues pertaining to diversity and inclusion? This can include past experiences, ethnic identity, and so on.
I lived in a pretty poor area of Houston, Texas, and attended one of a more underfunded public school. And I think that coming here to like we have much better funding and much better resources was kind of like a culture shock to go from a place that was pretty impoverished to somewhere like Pullman, Washington. And I think it kind of made me realize like how like what a privilege it is to go to a school that has proper funding and places where students can have their voices heard and be taken seriously.
Down on the west side, so I was on a team with many Asian American people like myself. So having that shift from playing, I guess, with many Asian people and then coming back here and playing with like many, I guess, white dominated like team definitely like opened my eyes, because it's kind of bad to say, but I feel more comfortable playing with like people of my race. But I enjoy playing with every single person, but it's easier to, I guess, like, understand like what they're thinking and how they grew up, because they have the same kind of values with like that traditional Asian value.
And like I would agree with that too, because like growing up, like many people in my school didn't share like my same ethnic identity, and like the only like communities where I feel like, oh, I'm represented in terms of like my identity is like when it's literally like my family and our family friends who like share the same identity, like coming together for events. Like that's the only sense of like established identity outside of like school that I ever felt. And so like being here, I feel like sometimes like there's certain aspects of my identity that like that feel like more hidden, I guess. They don't feel like as comfortable to be shown. So I know what you mean by like feeling more comfortable and feeling like more safe in areas where like people share my ethnic identity, I think.
So you don't feel like judged or anything, or
Yeah.
put down by what like you believe or
Mhm.
who you are as a person.
Going off of what you said, I've also like noticed like for me personally, like after moving to the US, I found it like way harder for me to like make friends or like to connect with people because like it was like such like a difference in like what I was like used to seeing to like what was here. So
I think that like being a part of two different cultures is definitely like really eye-opening. And I think it's also like such a privilege though, being able to be a part of two cultures. Even if it's, for me specifically, I found it like I have to fit into either one or the other. I can't just be in between. So being in America, sometimes it's really hard to like try to just like conform more to the social norms here. But then like when I'm in Colombia, it's like I have to be more like them, and it's just like really hard. But I think it's really important, and it just opens your eyes and like lets you know that including like every kind of person is like important, not just conforming to whatever you think you need to conform to.
I'm sort of piggybacking off of that. My entire, like, half of my family lives in England, and there's a sense that whenever I go there, like, I'm half British, and so when I go there, there's like, they're like, oh yeah, great, you're British, and then I'm also half that's not British, and they sort of, I don't get discluded by them, but there's like almost a sense that, oh, you're not like super British, you don't do British things, you're just like an American person, and you like have a bunch of like, you know, everyone's fat and lazy, and everyone like, it's kind of funny, but it's not, because I think even when people, like you said, Kai, when you go there, you're still treated like, oh, you're this American person.
Yeah, not Asian.
But then I think other people, when they're in America that are, you know, like say American Asian, they're not treated like Americans either. And so there's this really like, I feel like there's a lack of belonging for some people, where they're sort of pushed out of many different groups based off of like features that they have or experiences that they have.
And 3, describe your experiences, good or bad, regarding diversity and inclusion at Pullman High School. Specifically, this can include experiences in the classroom or what you have noticed around school in general. How do you feel and what did you do? And also, what did you learn?
I think a lot of like what I've seen and experienced has been like not very like blatant instances of like discrimination, but more like subtle and covert instances. Like people feel most comfortable, I think, being vocal about maybe like their deeper prejudices, I guess, through humor and like using, I've heard of a lot of like dark humor. Like people think that the kind of scapegoat to be able to express their opinions is through like humor that like puts down people of a certain category and of a certain group, and it's not like really recognizable to people always, and like it's difficult to like draw the line between what's humor and possibly making fun of a stereotype and a worldview and what's actually giving into a stereotype and being informed by harmful like worldviews and perspectives. So I think like the most instances I've seen of it is like when people are like kind of just saying it casually or using it, because most people don't like just say it outright because they know that's going to get called out, and they know like typically what is like racist or what is sexist, but people tend to think that like jokes and humor kind of play off, take the edge off of it, and that they're allowed to say it in that sense. So that's my main experience with it.
I think I've had very similar experiences. I stopped wearing my yarmulke because of some bad experiences that I've had, and I also stopped wearing my Star of David after an instance in a class when we had been doing a project with, we were like counting money, and somebody asked me if I had kept the pennies in my pockets, and many things like that, like little jabs that are played off as jokes when it's, you know, like it's
More
isolating.
serious, yeah.
And it's isolating, and it's like, well, when I wear my yarmulke to school and then you ask me if I kept the pennies in my pockets, that shows me that all you see. That's
Right.
all you see of me, you know?
Mhm.
And I think I've had multiple experiences, like, with that, like, even in middle school, like, wearing a yarmulke to school, like, I got made fun of, and just like that, like, just little jabs that were played off, but it was I internalized it a lot, I think.
Yeah.
Diverse background, I've been able to like interact with people that, you know, I would never think that would have like similar lives with them. Like, for instance, many of my friends, no matter their race, they watch like lots of animation, like Japanese animation. It's kind of fun to connect with them on that, especially with like sports. I know many people that are, no matter the race as well, that just love, that enjoy playing like soccer. We can connect with on those things, and it's kind of makes life more fun having different people in your life.
Yeah. I think a good experience that I've had at PHS was Yom Kippur is like the holiest Jewish holiday, and I was going to stay home and fast, and we had a test the day of Yom Kippur, and I talked to my teacher about it. He was very understanding, and it was just very heartwarming, especially just for him to be so understanding but not necessarily connect with me on the holiday itself, but he was very understanding and warm about it, and he wished me a happy Yom Kippur, and I think that was a very nice experience that I had.
Overall, does PHS feel like a safe place for students of all backgrounds to share their voices? Why?
I feel like the teachers, like most of the teachers and the administration, try their like best to make it a safe like place, but mostly it's like the students that like really make it hard for people to like share their voices and like feel comfortable like being themselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that we should work on as a school.
Yeah. I agree. I think like the administration definitely plays a role in terms of like punishment and in terms of like the curriculums and the education we receive on being like culturally competent. But I also think it's like the students in general perhaps like are not as inviting as they should be. Like most of the problems we have in the school are like other students targeting certain students, or just like there's a general culture of like, I don't know, there's definitely like a weird like dissonance or gap between like minority students and like the greater like white student body, I feel like, because like a lot of the students who we regard as like being popular or as being like I guess like as being more popular aren't as like respectful, I guess, towards like minority students. I feel like they generally have I think less open-mindedness towards certain issues, and that just creates a general culture where people are not like prioritizing certain conversations and discussions.
Because I feel like they think just because they're with their group of friends who think it's funny,
Yeah.
they think everyone thinks it's funny when it's not. It's just, it's wrong. So I think we just need to take more action, and students need to be educated on when they can't say stuff, or
Yeah.
they shouldn't say stuff. So
Yeah, I agree with like all that you guys are saying, and I think I have had personal experience, and I know I've known people that have had similar experience where not coming from admin, but other students making like borderline sexual harassment jokes, and kind of having trouble trying to talk to administration about that, because like you were saying, like it's kind of, let's sweep it under the rug, like maybe they didn't mean it, like, it was just a joke, what were their intentions? But, things like that really, really affect people. So I think, like, in order to make it a safer space, just like actually taking action and like listening to students, if that makes sense. Because it's not necessarily the admin's problem.
Yeah.
A lot of the problem comes from the student body, but I feel like the bigger problem is these students aren't educated on why they shouldn't say something like that, why they shouldn't make a joke about what somebody is wearing, why they shouldn't say slurs, you know?
Right. And I
No.
think like
like in our sex education course, there's not any information on it. In any of our classes, there's not an inclusion about it. And I
Right.
think that, in a sense, that makes it there like a lack of normalcy. Because there is a normalcy. People are like born genetically to have that. And so by having a school system that doesn't acknowledge that at all, I think it makes a very hostile environment. People feel like they have to sort of conform with stereotypes made, and they can't do things because they don't want to fit a certain stereotype, which does two things. It negatively impacts their learning, and it also reinforms stereotypes, which is like really bad.
Okay, we're going to move on to question 5. How do you think we as a community benefit from diversity? How can we utilize our differences in a positive way?
Well, I think just at the most basic level, like incorporating different perspectives and different worldviews means like we can challenge our own beliefs and our own perspectives and our own biases. It makes us more understanding of the ways in which we might be like subconsciously thinking certain things about a group that could be harmful, but we're not always like conscious of it because it's never been challenged before. I think it makes more empathetic communities. It makes more empathetic people. And when we are able to like have larger worldviews, we're able to reach more creative solutions. We're able to help more people. We're able to provide more resources that are more like individualized and aren't general. So I think at the biggest, it's like incorporation of different perspectives means we can reach quicker solutions and more creative solutions to certain problems.
Regarding equity and inclusion, what do these terms mean to you? Where do we see this in practice at PHS?
I think that there are a few school organizations that are trying to work on like inclusion of other like ethnicities, because this is a predominantly white school. Like there's BSU and then there's API Club, and I think that it's really important that those clubs are here because I think they're really a great way for people to see that those communities are like a presence in Pullman. Because I think without those, there's a lot more of this idea that the majority of people here are white, and it's sort of a lot of what you guys were talking about, where it's like a pushing of minorities, where it's like groups of, traditionally white people and at like smaller minorities being pushed into separate groups.
Especially through like multicultural night, I'm so happy we started that last year as a school because it really allows everyone to see how much diversity we do have in the school. Instead of blocking it or putting it aside, we are able to not only like experience through like their foods, but like through their clothing, through their culture, like having like minorities have a voice in the school through that event is super important, and I think it's really great that we have that here.
And I also want to like expand on multicultural night because I forgot to mention that earlier as like being a good experience like in the school with diversity, because like that was the first time I've seen like people who I never expected to show up to multicultural night came there, and they were very respectful and very engaged with the booths, and they were like so much more respect than I thought would have come from them. And it's like people being willing to be educated and being open to the idea of new cultures and being open to the idea that like these identities need to be present and seen within the school. I think there was so much visibility at that event, and I wish that I could just take the attitudes from that event and like apply it to the entire school culture, because like there were so many people there who like their openness that night was very unexpected, but I feel like that is people's like general nature. Like I want to believe that that's how they really are deep down, and like if we bring that out more in
School. Like we have that event outside of school, but having it during school or like just pushing people or like encouraging people to be a little bit more open-minded about different people, like different, I don't know how to say, like people who are outside of the norm or whatever. I just think that's like the main thing we need to focus on, is just pushing it through education through school.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with multicultural night was it's like very humanizing, and it's very grounding, and you can see like it's just like kind of a remind like we're all on the same earth, we're all going to the same school. Like the amount of like different cultures and like the fact that people are like feeling comfortable enough to share, like I think that's just like such a good experience. And I think it creates like an environment like where people have like a better attitude, like you were saying, towards like other people, and like, you know, I think that was, I really appreciated Multicultural Night as well. Like it was a very nice experience to be able to see like where everyone was coming from, and I think it yeah, it was really, really useful, I think.
And then adding on to that, we had many like WSU foreign students come. So those people, they never grew up in Pullman, so they really didn't know how it was like. So they have like a fresh perspective of their like home country. So many students at the high school were able to like talk with these people and learn like firsthand experience what it's like living outside of the U.S. or like outside of Pullman. So I feel like that helped a lot with, I guess, opening up their mindset and like having fun. And then as a person that was had like a booth there, I enjoyed like seeing many of my friends or many new people enjoy like my food that my culture has. And I think it was a really like nice, like wholesome experience.
Yeah, but I also had a booth there, and it just felt so nice to like tell everyone what it's like. It's like letting like kind of like, I don't know,
Like a glimpse into your
like
culture.
most people don't see that. When you look at someone, you don't really know where they're from, like what their culture's like, but being able to speak about it to other people who want to listen, it's just I don't like rewarding, I guess, but like I don't know, it just makes you feel so much better about like representing. You know, I cannot
I feel
talk,
like it
but
was a very mutually beneficial event.
yeah,
Like there was definitely a little bit of discomfort, like trying to explain your culture that might be kind of foreign to people, but like other people were so willing to get over that discomfort and so willing to see like learn more about you. And I think that is like the ultimate lesson that we want people to know is like there's going to be discomforts that come out of learning about other people's cultures and learning that, you know, different things about people's lives that you've never heard before, but like the ultimate end like outcome of it is that we all grow from it and we all expand our worldview from it. And I think Multicultural Night really explored that idea because it's like, well, yeah, it might be a little bit uncomfortable having this conversation at first, but that doesn't mean it's going to be uncomfortable forever. Like we get past it very quickly and like we become better people from it. And so I think that was a very good like display of that I wish more people would understand.
Okay. Question 7. How would you as an individual develop and or apply equity and inclusion to our school community? How would you handle a situation in which someone made a rude remark or microaggression?
The second part of the question really comes down to like education and like teaching people on like what is considered like a microaggression or like really rude or like offensive, because like going back to what other people said about like the gay people in our school and like other minorities other than like Black people, like offensive things said towards like their culture and like who they are is like really like looked over. But that's like mostly because like people don't think like about those people and they just think that it's like okay, it's like whatever. Like I'm not saying like a slur or anything that bad, so it's fine.
English curriculum and stuff like that, we're trying to incorporate books that bring other perspectives into it. And like I appreciate in my English class that we have like whole class discussions for the entire period where like we have different people giving their perspective on like issues happening in the book. And I think like discussions like that are very important. And I think
Should take regarding diversity, equity, and inclusivity. What steps do you think teachers and administrators should be taking at PHS?
Well, I think we should do more events like Multicultural Night. I feel like that's the most impactful way that we can like reach the students, because how you're saying like everyone at that night seemed like everyone was open-minded, everyone was just having fun. So I feel like if they start more of those events, have it like not monthly, but like just instead of having one, just doing multiple. I feel like that is the best way to open up students to that kind of environment.
Yeah, I really think that some sort of education in a classroom that's like designed for students to absorb, that's not very surface level but actually goes into depth about issues like that are extremely important. And I think that the school should actually have required classes that involve that, because I feel like a lot of your education depends on which classes you take. And if you don't take the AP classes or the certain classes, you tend to get more surface level information, and you don't get to look really deep into a lot of the issues that go on. Along with that, I feel like punishment for those things is it's a really difficult place to decide where to stand. Because on one end, you want to make sure that people know that behavior isn't okay, but you also want to make sure that they don't be isolated by that, and they don't sort of find like a group of people that are, hey, we're all, being racist, because that's really bad. And I think that that's another worry. We should try to make them, while it's bad, they should still be included in the, in the school, because they need to be part of like a community, but they also need to be told that it's not okay, and finding a balance on that is really difficult.
I think just like the main thing we have to do is just push education. But along with that, not just, although we should have like the serious conversations in classrooms and like education like that, I think we could also have fun education, like multicultural night, just more of that. Because once a year is not enough to represent all of us. So I think it's really important that we have so much more education regarding minorities in our school that, again, like Lysander said, required, and not just too serious. Because I think students think that everything that has to do with like discrimination and diversity, it's all going to be a serious topic, but it's not. It can be enjoyable, it can be fun, and it can open your mind.
Teachers and admin should also be educated on stuff like this, because like to be able to like punish like students for being like offensive and stuff like that, teachers and administration should also like be aware of these things and like know when to like call it out.
I definitely like to speak about inclusivity a lot, because I think I have a pretty unique perspective. I'm in a lot of extracurricular activities, and I think that I tend to notice the more and more competitive you get in these activities. If you want to go to a good college and you have to do these activities, there's a lot of pressure to do these activities, but for a good percentage of the students, that's not necessarily an affordable option. For example, there's a trip that I'm going on for a club that's going to be like in the uppers of $800, and I know many people that I know personally that that's not realistic for them, and so there's certain experiences that people are unable to have based off of where they are with their financial bracket. And I think it's something that our school should really try to have an emphasis on, is maybe getting state funding or something to truly make it so these experiences are experienceable for everyone, and much less have a almost like class thing where you have to be at a certain wealth bracket to be able to have certain extracurricular experiences.
What would you like to see at PHS? This is your time to bring up any issue that may or may not relate to DEI.
I think an experience that I had that was, it was very impactful on me was I had a negative run-in with a fellow student, and he had made a joke at my expense, and it was about my yarmulke, and I sat down with Ms. Schurtenlieb, and she had me explain to this student what the yarmulke meant to me and what it symbolized to me, and I think that was much more impactful on the other student, and it made me feel so much more seen than if he had just gotten a slap on the wrist, or if they had just been like, you can't say that, you can't do that. I think it was to see more of that instead of just punishment, but to actually educate each other.
Yeah, I think educating people and also humanizing them is really important, because I think it's important to understand that a lot of people that carry negative beliefs, because there are people in the school that do, usually it's not from them, it's their parents or it's people around them that are influencing them, and it's not that they just carry these beliefs because they want to believe them, it's that they lack the education to not have that belief. And I think that a school is a really great place to prevent things like that, because it's public and everyone has access to it, and so by having required courses and stuff, maybe not even required, but like a lot of information out there that really promote things for diversity, I think it's just super beneficial.